The brutality of the scene was almost unimaginable. Evidence of a struggle, a huge pool of blood staining the ground, and chilling signs of deliberate cruelty. An autopsy of the body revealed unspeakable horrors, indications of a violent struggle, sexual assault, and deep bruises on the neck consistent with strangulation. There was one more supreme act of cruelty. After strangling the victim, the perpetrator doubted whether she was dead and chose to slit her throat as well. As investigators pieced together her final hours, each new piece of evidence deepened the mystery. The detectives were confronted with a tangled web. The closer they got to the answer, the darker the story became. This high-profile tragedy spread throughout the city, leaving residents fearful of leaving their homes. Gabrielle Brittany Ujlicki was born on April 1, 2003 in Nevada, USA. She grew up in the small rural town of Spring Creek, where she developed a deep love for animals, particularly horses. From a young age, Brittany showed a natural talent for riding, often participating in local rodeo events. She was known for her outgoing personality and her close bond with her family, especially her father, who shared her passion for horses. Brittany had a strong sense of adventure and loved spending time outdoors, exploring the vast Nevada landscape. In school, Brittany was a dedicated student, known for her kindness and friendly nature. She had a wide circle of friends and was always eager to help others. Despite her success in rodeo, Brittany also dreamed of a career outside the sport, perhaps in the field of animal care or veterinary science. Growing up in a close-knit community, Brittany was always surrounded by family and friends. She spent a lot of time with her younger siblings, teaching them to ride and enjoy the outdoors. Her family often described her as bright, caring, and full of life. Brittany's life seemed full of promise, and her future appeared bright as she looked forward to graduating from high school and pursuing her dreams. Brittany and her family moved to the charming town of Elko, Nevada in 2010, leaving Spring Creek behind when her father, Jim Ujlicki, accepted a lucrative job with a local mining company. Elko, with its serene and inviting charm, seemed the ideal setting for a fulfilling life, a place where close-knit communities thrived and natural beauty abounded. Brittany's passions included horseback riding, a pursuit that found a perfect backdrop in Elko's expansive landscapes. The culture of the town, deeply rooted in cattle ranching and rodeo traditions, resonated with her adventurous spirit. Far from being limited by gender norms, these hobbies were enjoyed by boys and girls alike, adding an unpretentious allure to Brittany's character. Her radiant personality and love for life made her a beloved figure in the community. Being barely more than a year apart in age, the siblings shared a special connection, often engaging in shared interests and supporting each other. The family dynamic was one of warmth and resilience. Even when the inevitable strains of life led Brittany's parents to divorce, Jim and Alicia navigated the process with grace and mutual respect. Their primary focus remained on ensuring a stable and loving environment for their children. Alicia moved nearby, and the former couple worked in harmony, sharing parenting responsibilities and maintaining regular communication. This approach shielded Brittany and James from the harsher emotional impacts of the separation and allowed them to flourish. Growing up in this nurturing environment, Brittany developed into a well-rounded and principled young woman. Her sense of independence and willingness to take on responsibilities became evident at an early age. Whether it was helping her parents with household tasks or taking charge on the ranch, Brittany displayed remarkable maturity. By the time she turned 17, her skills in horseback riding and cattle herding were exceptional. Her work ethic and dedication earned admiration from her family and neighbors alike. As much as she thrived in practical settings, she embraced her youthful curiosity, experimenting with fashion and makeup like many teenagers. Her cheerful demeanor and kind-hearted nature made her popular among her peers, even as her ambitions set her apart. After high school, Brittany aspired to study psychiatry, driven by a deep compassion for those struggling with mental health issues. The suffering of others profoundly affected her, fueling her desire to make a difference. However, despite her strong moral character and admirable goals, Brittany faced challenges. In 2020, she became a target of bullying at school. According to her best friend, the hostility seemed rooted in jealousy and envy, particularly from other girls who resented Brittany's combination of beauty, intelligence, and kindness. The situation became so serious that Britney was homeschooled, but she didn't let the setback affect her. Through social media, Britney cultivated a small but supportive circle of friends who valued her for who she truly was. She dedicated herself even more to her passions, including horse racing, where she connected with like-minded individuals. During this time, she met Bryce Dickey, a slightly older young man who quickly became a significant part of her life. Their bond, built on mutual respect and shared values, blossomed into a close friendship. While Bryce seemed to harbor deeper feelings for Britney, she saw him as a protective older brother figure. They often spent time together, and Britney grew fond of Bryce's family, further strengthening their connection. Despite the hardships she encountered, Britney's resilience and positive outlook never wavered. Her experiences shaped her into a compassionate and determined individual. Britney also took a keen interest in environmental conservation, inspired by the natural beauty surrounding her hometown. She volunteered with local organizations dedicated to preserving the region's ecosystems, channeling her energy into causes she believed in. Whether planting trees or educating younger children about sustainability, Britney's efforts underscored her belief in making a positive impact on the world around her. On March 8, 2020, Britney and her close friend Bryce agreed to meet, as they often did, for a relaxing day together. That same afternoon, Britney's father, Jim, who played guitar in a local rock band, had a rehearsal. Britney, always supportive of her father's passion for music, joined him before her plans with Bryce. Her cheerful energy brightened the rehearsal room as she chatted with the band members and even sang along to a few of their songs. Britney, proud of her father's talent, invited Bryce to come and watch the rehearsal. However, Bryce was delayed and missed the performance. He picked up Britney later, with plans to take her to his place to watch a movie and then drop her home afterward. It was understood that Britney would be home by 7:30 p.m. in time for her father's return from rehearsal. However, when Jim arrived home, he found the house dark and silent. Calling out for Britney, he received no response. A quick search of the house confirmed that she wasn't there. Concerned, he tried calling her cell phone, only to find it turned off, an unusual and alarming occurrence. Britney was known for being responsible. She always informed her family if she was running late or if her phone battery was low. Her sudden silence raised immediate red flags. Jim contacted his son, James, to see if he had any idea of Britney's whereabouts, but James was equally puzzled. Growing increasingly worried, Jim decided to reach out to Bryce, who had been the last person known to see Britney that day. Bryce explained that after spending a few hours in town, he had dropped Britney off at the school where she had met a young man unknown to him. Bryce had then driven away, assuming Britney was safe. This revelation shocked Jim. Why had Bryce left Britney with someone he didn't know, especially when they had planned to watch a movie together? Bryce described the man as a tall, light-skinned young man who resembled a cowboy. He also mentioned that the man drove an old green Ford F-150 pickup truck. Jim's unease deepened. None of Britney's friends or acquaintances matched this description, nor did anyone they knew own such a vehicle. Bryce, seemingly guilt-stricken, reached out to James after his conversation with Jim, expressing regret for not ensuring Britney's safe return. He claimed Britney had insisted on staying to meet the young man, but now he worried something might have gone wrong. The family, grasping at the vague description of the stranger, spent the entire night trying to locate Britney. They called her number repeatedly, only to be met with voicemail every time. Jim and James patrolled the streets in their car, driving around the school, nearby areas, and through the town, hoping for any sign of her. They also contacted Britney's friends and acquaintances, hoping someone might know where she was. One of Britney's friends provided the first significant clue. Shortly before her disappearance, Britney had mentioned someone named JT. She hadn't given any details about him or their relationship, but it seemed she had planned to meet him that day. This lead added both urgency and mystery to the family's search. The family reported Britney's disappearance to the police the following morning, only to be met with initial skepticism. The officers suggested that Britney might have run away or was out with friends and would return on her own. But Britney's family knew better. This behavior was entirely out of character for her. She had no history of running away, no behavioral issues, no substance abuse problems, and no conflicts with her family that might prompt such an act. Brittany was a grounded and responsible young woman who always kept her loved ones informed. The family's anxiety escalated with each passing hour. Jim and James continued to search tirelessly, while Alicia, Brittany's mother, made countless phone calls to anyone who might provide a clue. The mention of JT became central to their thoughts. If JT was indeed the person Brittany had gone to meet, he might hold the key to her whereabouts. As the hours turned into days, the Ujlaki family refused to give up hope. They distributed flyers with Brittany's photo and the description of the green Ford F-150 pickup truck. The small town of Elko, usually quiet and close-knit, was abuzz with concern and speculation. Many residents joined the search efforts, combing through nearby wooded areas, abandoned buildings, and remote ranches. Jim, deeply troubled, revisited every detail of his last interaction with Brittany that day at the rehearsal. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss about Bryce's account. Why would Bryce, a trusted friend, leave Brittany alone with a stranger? Jim's protective instincts clashed with his desire to trust Bryce, a young man who had always seemed reliable and respectful. Meanwhile, the mention of JT brought to light another aspect of Brittany's life that her parents hadn't fully known. Brittany had been active on social media and had recently joined a group dedicated to horse enthusiasts. It was possible that JT was someone she had met online, a fellow equestrian or rodeo participant. Alicia and James began scouring Brittany's social media profiles for any clues, looking for recent interactions, messages, or posts that might point to this mysterious figure. But unfortunately, they were unable to find information about this person. Her loved ones could not shake the dreadful feeling that Brittany's sudden disappearance concealed something sinister. It was entirely unlike her to vanish without notice, and every passing moment intensified their fear. After considerable persuasion, the sheriff was finally convinced to take the case seriously. The family and Brittany's friends provided every piece of information they could gather, creating a clearer picture of the events leading up to her vanishing. The sheriff decided that a more thorough interview with Bryce was necessary, arranging for him to meet near the school where he had last seen Brittany. Bryce recounted that he and Brittany had been driving around the Spring Creek area that day, a routine they often enjoyed. During their ride, Bryce received an urgent call from his father asking him to come home to help with some tasks. Brittany, understanding the sudden change in plans, asked to be dropped off at the school instead, mentioning her intention to meet someone named JT. Bryce recalled watching her walk toward a green pickup truck parked nearby, where a white man in a cowboy hat sat in the driver's seat. He admitted, with regret, that he drove off without ensuring she got into the truck safely or noting its license plate. His memory of the details was vague, and he could provide little more information about the man or the vehicle. Despite the troubling gaps in Bryce's story, the detectives did not suspect him of lying or wrongdoing. They released him and redirected their focus to other avenues of investigation. The police decided to involve the media, hoping to draw public attention to the case. News outlets broadcasted details about the mysterious cowboy and his green pickup truck, urging anyone with information to come forward. Despite the extensive coverage, locals seemed reluctant to share anything substantial, as if a shadow of fear or apathy hung over the town. The sheriff sought assistance from the telephone company to trace the last activity on Brittany's cell phone. The results pointed to a location 7 kilometers from the school where Bryce had left her. Detectives rushed to the area, combing through fields, woods, and abandoned structures, but their search yielded no significant clues. Brittany's trail seemed to evaporate, deepening the despair of her family and friends. Meanwhile, the Ujlaki family, refusing to sit idle, continued their relentless search. They distributed over 500 flyers with Brittany's photo across the town and its outskirts. Her mother, Alicia, turned to social media, creating a group dedicated to the search effort. She posted daily updates, hoping the digital platform would reach someone with crucial information. Days later, Alicia received a chilling text message from an unknown number. The sender claimed to have kidnapped Brittany and demanded a $25,000 ransom, threatening unimaginable harm if the demands were not met. Another message followed, stating that Brittany was ill and required medication, which the captor would provide only upon receiving the ransom. The Ujlaki family was paralyzed with fear and anguish. Though desperate to save their daughter, they decided to alert the police before taking any action. At the police station, investigators immediately began efforts to trace the extortionist's phone number, hoping it would lead to Brittany's location. As the officers worked, the head of one of the volunteer search teams called the station with a grim update. While combing an area 20 kilometers from the city, volunteers had noticed a suspicious puddle resembling dried blood on the roadside. Upon closer inspection, they discovered a blue tarp hidden in the bushes approximately 100 meters from the road. Underneath it lay the body of a young girl, partially undressed and face down. The clothing matched the description of what Brittany had been wearing the day she disappeared. The detective called Brittany's mother, Alicia, to break the heartbreaking news of the discovery of an unidentified body. Alicia burst into tears, her motherly intuition telling her that the body was Brittany's even before confirmation. When the family arrived at the scene, their worst fears were realized. Forensic experts identified a keychain with Brittany's name near the body, confirming her identity. Alicia broke down upon seeing her daughter from a distance, the weight of reality too much to bear. The preliminary examination revealed disturbing details. Brittany had been subjected to violence and coerced into intimacy. The revelation sent shockwaves through the small community. The once quiet town of Elko was now gripped by horror and grief as the news spread. The investigation's focus shifted rapidly following the discovery. The police intensified their efforts to track the extortionist's phone number, suspecting a connection to Brittany's death. Meanwhile, the search for the man in the green pickup truck became more urgent than ever. Detectives canvassed nearby towns, hoping to match the vehicle to a local owner. Witnesses were re-interviewed, and the media appealed to anyone who might have seen something unusual around the time of Brittany's disappearance. Candlelight vigils were held in her memory, drawing hundreds of mourners who shared stories of her kindness, resilience, and dreams. Despite the tragedy, the Ujlaki family vowed to honor Brittany's legacy by advocating for stronger safety measures in their community, including educational programs on online interactions and personal safety. Continuing to examine the crime scene, investigators saw some brutal footage. Her pants and underwear were pulled down to her ankles. The autopsy later confirmed that she had been strangled and her throat brutally slashed, the latter being the direct cause of death. Nearby, officers spotted Brittany's headphones hanging from branches, their wires tangled in the bushes. Evidence of sexual assault was apparent. A used condom and its packaging were found near her body. With this grim discovery, the investigators had tangible evidence to begin piecing together the events leading up to Brittany's death. Fear and outrage permeated the community, uniting its members in grief and solidarity. Social media became a platform for support, with hundreds of messages and tributes pouring in for Brittany and her devastated family. Among those visibly shaken was Bryce, who remained in close contact with the Ujlaki family. He helped distribute flyers, attended vigils, and was often seen consoling Brittany's parents and brother. Tears streaming down his face, Bryce described Brittany as a radiant and kind-hearted person whose friendship had been a blessing in his life. Despite the emotional toll, the detectives had to push forward. Warrants were quickly obtained to examine Brittany's computer and cell phone for leads. The DNA evidence from the condom was sent to the crime lab for analysis, although the results could take weeks to process. Law enforcement also began compiling a list of registered sex offenders in the area, suspecting that Brittany's murder might be the work of an internet predator targeting young women. At the same time, the police delved into the anonymous ransom demands Brittany's mother had received. Tracing the phone number proved challenging. The number was unregistered and purchased through an online service, obscuring its origin. While the source remained unclear, investigators believed the sender had intimate knowledge of Brittany's disappearance and was likely connected to the crime. A key piece of the puzzle was the identity of JT, the mysterious acquaintance Brittany had mentioned before her death. Detectives obtained data from her phone, allowing them to track down the young man. Their hopes for a breakthrough were dashed when it was revealed that JT had been in Alaska at the time of the murder. Although Brittany had communicated with him and planned to meet, he was definitively ruled out as a suspect. JT's confirmed alibi left the investigators back at square one. Turning their attention to other leads, detectives began searching for anyone fitting the description of the cowboy-like man driving a green pickup truck. 2 young ranch workers in the area owned similar vehicles and matched the general description. Both men were questioned extensively, but airtight alibis proved they were uninvolved. Each promising lead seemed to dissolve into disappointment, leaving the case at a frustrating standstill. In a desperate attempt to uncover new information, the detectives revisited the Ujlaki family. During this conversation, Brittany's mother recalled a detail she had previously overlooked. A few weeks before Brittany's death, she had dated a man who embodied the cowboy lifestyle. He worked on a ranch, participated in rodeos, and drove a pickup truck. Their relationship ended quickly and bitterly after Brittany refused to engage in intimacy. Although the breakup was relatively amicable, it was punctuated by heated arguments, during which the man had reportedly wished harm upon Brittany. Detectives considered this lead promising, but were once again thwarted when the man provided a strong alibi, supported by multiple witnesses, placing him out of town on the day of Brittany's murder. The investigation seemed to hit another dead end, the frustration mounting as days turned into weeks without a clear suspect. Determined to exhaust every avenue, the investigators decided to review all available surveillance footage from traffic and security cameras in the city and surrounding areas. They were particularly focused on identifying the green pickup truck seen near the school where Bryce had last dropped Brittany off. This process was painstaking, involving hours of reviewing grainy footage, cross-referencing timestamps, and mapping possible routes the vehicle could have taken. Strangely, the supposed vehicle didn't appear on any cameras near the school where Bryce claimed to have dropped Brittany off. However, the police discovered something else that changed the direction of the investigation. Footage captured Bryce's blue Chevrolet pickup truck. Contrary to his statements, the video showed Bryce driving past the school without stopping. This revelation confirmed he had lied about the green truck and about dropping Brittany off near the school. The detectives then decided to follow the trajectory of Bryce's vehicle as captured by other surveillance cameras. He had previously stated that he and Brittany had been driving around Spring Creek for several hours, but this also proved untrue. With growing suspicion, investigators sought Bryce's cell phone data to cross-check his movements against Brittany's known locations. A warrant was quickly obtained due to the strength of the evidence. Quietly, without alerting Bryce, the detectives pieced together a damning timeline. Bryce's phone data showed he had been with Brittany throughout the day. Their movements aligned perfectly until Brittany's phone was turned off. Moreover, his phone placed him at the exact location where Brittany's body was later discovered. The evidence was becoming incontrovertible. Bryce had been at the crime scene and had either participated in the murder or witnessed it. To confirm their suspicions, investigators needed physical evidence. Bryce was summoned to provide DNA samples and submit to additional testing. While Bryce cooperated willingly, the investigators played it cool, presenting the request as a routine procedure for everyone close to Brittany. Skin particles found under Brittany's nails and DNA from the condom at the crime scene were compared against Bryce's samples. When the results came back, they were definitive. Bryce's DNA matched both. This confirmed that Bryce had engaged in sexual activity with Brittany, but the forensic analysis also indicated that it had been non-consensual. Brittany had been forced. Armed with this evidence, detectives summoned Bryce for another round of questioning. Careful not to tip their hand, they acted as though they were still clarifying basic facts. Bryce appeared calm and confident, repeating his earlier claim that he and Brittany had a platonic relationship and that he saw her as a sister figure.
Sit down here. Can I get you anything?
Oh, no.
All right. I'll be right back. I'll go over this with you.
Okay.
Just so you know, everything in this room is recorded and everything like that. So.
Okay.
Well, tell me about Brittany. What's she like?
You're gonna have to ask a question because that's a lot. It's not in like a bad way or anything, but I mean,
Right. What was Brittany to you?
honestly, Brittany was my little sis. Like, I've known her since 7th or 8th grade. One of the closest people to me. I was gonna say, I didn't even start calling her. I called her little sis for about the last 2.5, 3 years, but she called me big brother since probably about the like right after the first year that I met her. But one of the closest people to me. She was. A lot of people didn't like her for a lot of reasons, but she was very blunt and kept to who she was, even if a lot of people didn't like that. So that was why a lot of people in Spring Creek didn't like her, because she was extremely honest.
However, the investigators began subtly poking holes in his story. They informed him that a condom containing his DNA had been found at the crime scene. This revelation clearly rattled Bryce. Realizing his initial story wouldn't hold up, Bryce began to alter his narrative. He claimed that Brittany had unexpectedly flirted with him on the day of her death, behavior he insisted was out of character. According to Bryce's revised account, they kissed and eventually engaged in consensual oral sex using a condom. He claimed this occurred on the side of the road where her body was later discovered. Afterward, he maintained, he drove her to meet the mysterious cowboy in the green pickup truck, but dropped her off at a location other than the school. Detectives pressed Bryce further, pointing out inconsistencies in his story. When asked to describe the cowboy or provide details about the truck, Bryce offered vague and unhelpful responses, claiming he hadn't gotten a clear look at the man or the vehicle. His refusal to abandon the story about the green pickup truck raised more red flags. The detectives weren't convinced by Bryce's revised testimony. The forensic evidence painted a picture of violence and coercion, contradicting his claim of consensual intimacy. Skin particles under Brittany's nails suggested a struggle, and her injuries indicated she had fought fiercely against her attacker. The investigators decided to dig deeper into Bryce's background. Interviews with mutual friends and acquaintances revealed that Bryce had been infatuated with Brittany for years. While he outwardly portrayed their relationship as sibling-like, some friends recalled moments when Bryce exhibited jealousy or possessiveness, particularly when Brittany interacted with other men. These behaviors, though subtle, hinted at a deeper, unspoken tension in their dynamic. In a chilling twist, one acquaintance recounted a conversation in which Bryce had expressed frustration about being friend-zoned by Brittany. He allegedly joked that, "One day she'll realize what she's missing," a statement that now seemed darkly prophetic. The surveillance footage provided further evidence contradicting Bryce's narrative. Not only did it fail to show any green pickup truck, but it also captured Bryce's truck lingering near the crime scene for an extended period. This contradicted his claim of simply dropping Brittany off to meet someone else. Investigators theorized that Bryce, feeling rejected or spurned, might have lashed out in a moment of rage. The final blow to Bryce's story came from additional forensic analysis. Trace amounts of his blood were found on Brittany's clothing, suggesting he might have been injured during the struggle. The combination of DNA evidence, surveillance footage, and behavioral analysis left little doubt about his guilt. With mounting evidence against him, Bryce was brought in for a final questioning. This time, the detectives confronted him directly with the forensic results, the surveillance footage, and the timeline derived from his phone data. Cornered, Bryce broke down and confessed. He admitted that he had driven Brittany to the remote location where her body was found, intending to confess his feelings for her. When she rebuffed him, a heated argument ensued. Bryce claimed he lost control, attempting to force himself on her. When Brittany resisted and threatened to report him, he panicked. In his confession, Bryce described how he strangled her in a fit of rage and, fearing she wasn't dead, slashed her throat. Despite his confession, Bryce attempted to minimize his actions, blaming his behavior on emotional turmoil and claiming it was an isolated incident. His cold rationalization only deepened the horror of the crime for everyone involved. The investigators meticulously reviewed the evidence and summed up their findings. Bryce's story, that another man had picked up Brittany, taken her to the crime scene, and killed her, was riddled with inconsistencies. First, no foreign DNA was found on Brittany's body. Instead, Bryce's DNA was abundant. Traces of his DNA were found under her nails, in intimate areas, and even on her neck near the fatal knife wound. Surveillance footage and phone location data also discredited Bryce's claim. The evidence confirmed that Bryce had not stopped anywhere else and had lied about dropping Brittany off. The case against him was becoming airtight. Faced with the mountain of evidence, Bryce was informed of the discrepancies in his story. However, he was already telling a different story. He claimed it was an accident, that Brittany had requested rough sex involving a knife, during which she accidentally impaled herself. This explanation was implausible, especially given his track record. On March 19, 2020, Bryce Dickey, then 18, was arrested. After obtaining a warrant, detectives searched Bryce's home and vehicle. What they uncovered painted an even darker picture. In his closet, they found a pair of shoes stained with Brittany's blood, along with a knife believed to be the murder weapon. In the trunk of his car was a bloody hoodie, also covered in the victim's blood. Both the shoes and the hoodie bore Bryce's fingerprints and DNA, leaving no room for doubt about his involvement. When the Ujlaki family was informed of Bryce's guilt, their shock was immeasurable. Brittany's mother, father, and brother had seen Bryce as part of their family. They had trusted him implicitly, treating him like a son. To them, Bryce was Brittany's best friend, someone who looked out for her and ensured her safety. Learning that he had betrayed that trust in the most horrifying way imaginable was devastating. The family struggled to reconcile the boy they had welcomed into their lives with the cold, manipulative killer revealed by the evidence. Brittany's family was haunted by one question. Why? Despite his confession, Bryce never disclosed his true motive for killing Brittany. His claims of an accidental death were laughable in the face of the evidence, but he refused to provide a real explanation. The missing pieces of the puzzle were supplied by one of Brittany's close friends. According to the friend, a few days before the murder, Bryce had confessed his romantic feelings to Brittany. She had gently rejected him, suggesting they remain friends. Though Brittany handled the situation with kindness, the rejection seemed to have cut deeply. At the same time, Bryce had learned that Brittany was communicating with a new acquaintance, JT. The friend revealed that Bryce had expressed jealousy and frustration over this, even making cryptic comments about showing her what she deserved. Detectives theorized that the rejection, combined with his perception of competition from JT, pushed Bryce into a state of rage. His controlling nature couldn't tolerate losing control over Brittany's life. Fueled by anger and resentment, he decided to punish her for rejecting him and moving on. Brittany's death left an indelible mark on her family and the community. The Ujlaki family, shattered by the loss of their beloved daughter and sister, channeled their grief into advocacy. They established the Brittany Ujlaki Foundation, an organization dedicated to raising awareness about relationship violence, manipulation, and the warning signs of abusive behavior. The foundation also worked to support young women facing similar dangers, providing resources and education to help them recognize and escape unhealthy relationships. The trial and its revelations rocked the town of Elko. Residents struggled to come to terms with the idea that someone they thought they knew, a young man who had grown up among them, was capable of such horrific acts. Initially, the police did not take the girl's disappearance too seriously, assuming that she could have run away from home or hung out with friends. If the investigation had started immediately, perhaps Brittany could have been saved. In addition, the girl's family and friends believed Bryce's words for too long, although there were many inconsistencies and contradictions in his story. If they had suspected something wrong earlier and shared their doubts with the investigation, it could have expedited the disclosure of the crime and the arrest of the killer. The trial of Bryce Dickey for the murder did not commence until May 2022, more than 2 years after her tragic death. The courtroom was packed with people eager for justice, and the prosecution meticulously laid out a compelling case. Their evidence included damning DNA matches, incriminating surveillance footage, and powerful testimonies from individuals who knew both the victim and the accused. Among the witnesses, Bryce's ex-girlfriend provided some of the most chilling and pivotal testimony, peeling back the facade of the charismatic young cowboy the town thought they knew. He often helped others, attended local events, and seemed to embody the values of hard work and kindness. However, the image presented by his ex-girlfriend was a stark contrast. She described him as deeply controlling, manipulative, and dangerously temperamental. She recounted numerous fights where Bryce had escalated to physical violence, including multiple instances of strangulation during arguments. Her testimony painted him as a predator with a dark and sinister side, capable of terrifying cruelty. After their breakup, Bryce's behavior turned obsessive. He stalked her relentlessly, sending threatening messages and making her fear for her safety. The harassment only stopped after her parents intervened, threatening to press charges if he didn't leave her alone. Her testimony shattered the illusion of Bryce's good guy persona. The behaviors he exhibited in their relationship, manipulation, control, and violence, were eerily similar to the dynamics he later had with Brittany. What had seemed like protective concern for Brittany, giving her rides, ensuring she got home safely, was in hindsight an extension of his controlling nature. He wanted to monitor her movements and assert dominance over her life. Despite the overwhelming evidence, Bryce's defense attorney attempted to sow doubt, offering far-fetched theories about the crime and suggesting alternative explanations for the forensic evidence. However, the jury was not swayed. The combination of physical evidence, witness testimony, and Bryce's inconsistent accounts made the case against him unassailable. After 9 days of hearings, it took the jurors about an hour to discuss the verdict. All the jurors agreed that Bryce was guilty of first-degree murder and coercion into intimate relations. The judge sentenced him to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after serving a 20-year term. For the use of a deadly weapon, he received another 20 years. The same sentence was given for abduction, and for coercion into intimacy by force, another 10 years were added to the sentence. Bryce went behind bars for life. He will be able to go free only after 70 years in prison,